Hi, I'm Val McDermid.
How does it feel to be back in Torquay?
It's lovely to be back in Torquay. I started my career as a journalist in Devon, in Plymouth and in Exeter, working for local papers. And so it's interesting to come back and see how it's changed.
Yeah, tell us about your latest book.
My latest book to be published is Winter, and I'm never quite sure how to describe it. It's half memoir and half nature book, and a third half is just my recollections of childhood and how we spend winter, but also how winter is important to me because it's the season when you don't want to go outside because it's cold and wet and horrible. So I stay indoors and write my books.
It's interesting actually because you say in that book, January is when you really start your creative process for that year. Why do you think that is?
I think because after the celebrations of New Year, which of course is the big holiday in Scotland, it's still a bigger holiday than Christmas, really, in my mind. I'm ready to get going. I've been working on the idea of the book for a while, probably a few months beforehand. But when January comes around, that's my kick in the bum to get moving.
So you got a new Karen Pirie out, haven't you? Tell us about that.
The new Karen Pirie is Silent Bones, which is the 8th Karen Pirie, which I find quite hard to believe because when I started out with Karen, I didn't think she had much life in her at all, but she's got lots of life in her. And she develops and grows with every book. And this one takes place, it opens up with a heavy rainstorm and a collapse of a motorway embankment and the revelation of a skeleton, human remains, in the collapse of the bit of motorway that was only built 10 years before. So the first question they have to answer is, whose body is it? And that ties into another case, an unsolved murder. And as usual, one thing leads to another, and they find themselves in all sorts of strange places and strange corners from the east side of Germany to the south of England.
I mean, you've created some very memorable characters over the years. Do you have a favourite?
My favourite is whoever I'm writing at the time of being asked the question, because that's the place I'm spending most of my time at that point. So when I'm writing a Karen Pirie book, it's Karen. When I'm writing a Tony Hill, Carol Jordan, it's Tony and Carol. When I'm writing a standalone, it's whoever I'm writing about. And the next book I'm writing is 1999, which is the 9th series, which is Ali Burns, which the idea of this series is following a character at 10-year intervals for her whole career, from starting out as a young journalist to wherever it is she ends up. I'm not quite sure yet.
Is there a bit more of you in her, being an ex-journalist?
I don't really think so. People tend to conflate writers with the characters they write, because you may graft on some of the facts of your life to a character, but it doesn't mean you're grafting your personality onto them. And I don't think I'm really like Ali in many ways. I think she's probably more resourceful than me, and she's certainly more tenacious than me. I'd have given up on things long ago, and she keeps plugging away.
So we're here in the home of Agatha Christie and celebrating her and the whole crime genre. And what for you is what makes her still endure today, really?
I suppose part of it is that Agatha Christie was my, I suppose, drug of entry into crime fiction. The first book of hers I read was The Murder at the Vicarage. I was 9 years old, and I thought it was amazing. I just loved the way the stories all came together, because it's not just one plot. You've got the murder of Colonel Prothero. That's not a spoiler because it happens right at the beginning of the book. And then there are lots of other subplots going on. So every time you get to the end of a chapter and you think, what's happening next? You get moved into a different subplot. So you have to get to the end of that and find out what's happening next. And I found it fascinating. I look back at it now and I understand structurally what she was doing. But at the time that I first started reading it, I was just enthralled by this storytelling. And I looked at the front of the book and realised that Agatha Christie had written more than one book. So I was determined I was going to get my hands on the rest of them. So thanks to the local library and second-hand bookshops and jumble sales, over the years I built a fairly large collection of Agatha Christie. And I still go back to her books with pleasure. And the Murder at the Vicarage is one of those books that, if I'm in bed with the flu or something like that, I'll go and read it again, or I'll listen to it again on audiobooks, because it somehow plugs into that part of my life where the creativity stems from, I think. But I think what's most important about her work is that she tells the story in a satisfying sort of way. She uses different narrative devices in the books. They're not all told in the same way. So many writers with a long backlist, basically the story is told always in the same way, from the same point of view. She mixed it up, and she was quite innovative in lots of ways. I mean, one of her books, The ABC Murders, is the first time I remember reading about a serial killer, for example. And so there's lots of things in her books that you look at now and you think, nobody else was doing that at the time. She had a very fertile imagination, and that's what draws me in. Well, sitting behind Poirot's desk is a little challenging because my little grey cells seem to be on holiday a lot of the time at the moment. I'm feeling my way into the new book, and it's really like, what happens next? Why are they doing that? Who is this? Who did that? So I'm in a place of trying to figure things out at the moment. So perhaps some of Poirot's intellect will rub off from me sitting in this chair.